Whilst regularly maintaining a bike does ensure you're going to be able to ride a lot of the time pretty much carefree, the inevitable will happen from time to time. Now you can be prepared and carry multi-tool, inner tube, pump, that sort of stuff, but sometimes you're going to get some stuff go wrong with your bike and it catch you unaware. So a bit of improvisation is often needed. So here are some of our best hacks to help get you home. Now first things first, you want to do a pre-ride check. Ideally, every time you go for a ride, when you get home, you clean your bike, you want to inspect it, check all the bolts, especially the important ones. You want to check stuff like your axles, front and rear. You want to check things like your brake calipers, your brake rotors, all your controls and the things that directly connect you to the bike. If you're not doing that before you ride a bike, or at very least when you get home from riding a bike, you're not going to miss all the things that just rattle loose over time. So work your way around the bike, start up front, systematically check all the bolts and work to the back of the bike. Something we've all done out on the trail at some point is snap to a rear derailleur in a cable. Obviously, by doing this, this renders your gears out of action because there's no tension to actually operate your rear derailleur. So there's two options with this really. The first one is to just rip the cable out, don't need that anymore because it's broken, and use your limit screws and give yourself a gear. However, there's only so much you can do with those limit screws. You might get third or fourth gear if you're lucky, which is good and it will get you home. But the thing that we really like to do is take the cable out completely, and using the rear stop on the mech, I'll show you a cool little trick to give you the gear that you want. So I've removed the cable from the bike. Obviously in this case it isn't actually a snap cable. We're just going to show you what to do if your cable was snapped. You're out on the trail, so flip your bike upside down. Just be careful you don't damage your controls or anything when you're doing so. Try and put it somewhere nice and soft. Gives you a bit better access to the rear derailleur that you're going to be working on. So the natural resting position for a derailleur when it's got no cable tension in it is on the smallest sprocket, so that's your highest gear. So of course you can ride home like this, but typically it's going to happen when you've got to climb or something to get up. So this is a nice little way to give yourself the gearing that you think you're going to need to get up. Okay, so the idea here is instead of the nipple being in the shifter, the nipple's now going to sit in the cable slot here. You're going to pull the cable tight against that, manipulate the derailleur into the gear that you actually want it to stay in, and clamp down that cable and it should stay in place. This bit is a little bit tricky to do on your own, so if you've got your riding buddy with you, this is where he can help you or she can help you. So what you want to do is just pedal the gears around a bit until you find the gear that you want, and you have to manually move the rear mech to do that. Obviously mechs these days have got clutches in them, so you've got to overcome that force. So let's just get this going. And I'm going to pick quite a low gear because I've got a bit of a hill to ride on the way home. So that's roughly the gear I want. I've got to hold this in place. I've got my Allen key here. I've just got to pull the cable through the pinch belt here and hopefully hold this tight. You can look down the line of the rear mech itself to check it's in line. Make sure it's not going to skip around too bad. And then crank up that pinch bolt and hopefully your bike will stay in gear. Now if you've got a set of cable cutters, it's nice to just cut the end of the cable off. I haven't, so I'm forced to coil it up. Do this as neatly as you can because it's going to catch on stuff and it will fray even further then. So just a nice tight circle and just loop back through itself just to hold it in place. Some of the components on mountain bikes are very easily damaged, just like the rear derailleur and the rear disc rotor, because they hang down and they're targeted to being hit by rocks or if you crash. So bending a disc rotor is actually a fairly common thing, and in an ideal world you'll have a pair of pliers so you can bend it back on some sort of multi-tool. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to try and manually push this one back, and if I can't do that, then show you a little trick to do with your multi-tool. Now without being in the workshop with the proper tools, you're never going to get this disc like completely straight, and it's still going to rub on the caliper as it passes through, but at least you're going to make a better job of this one. That's pretty bad. It slows down and makes the back end of the bike judder. So on my particular multi-tool here, the 5 and the crosshead screwdriver are quite close together and they're quite stiff. So I'm actually going to wedge the disc rotor between them and use them to manipulate the disc back as far as I can, just enough to get it through so I can ride home. I've managed to straighten it just enough to pass through the caliper without sort of slowing it down too much. It's not the best job, but given I've done this just with a basic multi-tool, that's pretty good and it's going to get me home. Check this out. Despite all the innovations in bikes, one of the things that brings everyone to a halt is the puncture. Now it doesn't matter if you've got tubeless or you're running an inner tube, something like a sidewall slash like this is going to bring you to a stop. So you can't just fix this by putting a tube in it and pumping it up, because the tube's going to bulge out the side and that will puncture very quickly. So what you need to do is find a method of patching this up just enough so you can get home. Now Park make a thing called a TYRE boot, which is effectively a giant puncture repair patch. And that's the best thing you can get. They cost a few quid, but they're worth keeping in your riding pack. I've had this one, as you can see by the state of it, in my riding bag for a long time, and I've never had to use it, so I'm going to demonstrate that. However, if you don't have one of those and you're really stuck on the trail, what you need is something firm to put in here. A bit of card could do it, but it's likely to get soggy and not really do the job properly. So a debit card or a credit card is your next best bet. So it's actually worth keeping your old cards just for that purpose. I'm actually not going to do this. I'm going to put the tyre boot straight in place here. Before I reinflate the tyre I've just repaired there, it's worth stating that this is a 26-inch inner tube and that's a 27.5-inch tyre. Just because it's a little bit smaller doesn't mean it's not going to fit. And with that in mind, we actually recommend carrying with you a 27.5-inch inner tube with a Presta valve. The reason for that is that you can still squash them into a 26-inch tyre and you can stretch them into a 29-inch wheel. The Presta valve, the reason for that is it will fit either Presta or Schrader, which is the car valve, rim drillings. In this particular case, the tyre boot isn't sticking very well to the inside of the tyre. You might also find the same thing if you've had a tubeless setup, so the sealant's stopping it doing that. It's not too important as long as you make sure the boot stays over the hole whilst you're putting the inner tube in. When you start inflating with air, the inner tube is actually going to hold it in place against the sidewall of the tyre. So as you can see, I've used the tyre boot on the inside of this tyre carcass slash here, fixed it, inflated it, it's holding. But as you can see, there's a bit of a bulge on the side here, so that suggests there's quite a bit of pressure. I'm actually going to let a little bit of pressure out of this, keep an eye on it my whole ride home. You've got to bear in mind now that that is unfortunately a new tyre. You're not going to get away with this one, that's too big a slash. But the point is, hacks to get you home, and that's a great one. Hopefully some of these little hacks have been really helpful for you, and at some point they'll get you back on the trail. Bear in mind that these aren't going to fix everything, so it's also worth taking some spares with you. In addition to an inner tube, CO2 cartridges, all that sort of stuff, I like to carry a little box like this. In here I've got chain bolts, I've got chain pins, split links, and one thing in particular I always carry with my bikes is a spare rear mech hanger. If you bend one of these out on the trail, trying to straighten it's really hard without snapping it, and that properly stuffs up your ride. So check the one that you need for your bike, and it's well worth getting. If you want to see how it fits one of those, click down here. And if you want to find out 3 different ways to join the chain out on the trail, click up here. Don't forget to subscribe by clicking here on the globe in the middle, and give us a little thumbs up if you like the video.